Well, my 9 to 5 eventually became my 9 to never again, and it nearly made me quit everything altogether because it had all gotten to the point where it was so extremely stressful that I was done with everything, honestly. A toxic environment can drain your passion for anything and everything all at once, all together. And everything slowly became a very toxic environment. Some created by the place itself, the people there, and other stuff more so on my own accord, because if I didn't see the results I wanted, I really beat myself down for it. So if I didn't get that client that was telling me that they were interested, then I blame myself because I could have done this better, I could have done that better. My YouTube stuff didn't get anywhere near the views I wanted, so it was my fault because I could have done this better, I could have done that better. And even though a lot of that is true, I was very harsh on myself for the simple fact I didn't do as good as I wanted to. Same with going to school, same with honestly everything that I was trying, even working out. I developed into tendonitis, and then I felt like I knew nothing. It's like, oh my goodness, I've spent all this time working out and practicing and doing this and doing that, and I can't even get that right. Stuff happens. So if there's an environment that you're in and it's very toxic, I strongly recommend that you remove yourself from that environment or remove the element that is toxic. There are a lot of early signs for burning out, whether it's something you really enjoy, whether it's just something you got to do, or anything between. Eventually you start not wanting to do it. You're very fatigued, you're very worn out, you have no interest in doing it. You start finding yourself thinking of more excuses not to do it than to do it. And in fitness, there's also more signs to burning out is you regress, you stop making progress, stuff starts hurting more than, oh, this is just sore, your joints start hurting, connective tissue starts hurting, your body just feels beat up versus like, man, I'm sore, that was a good workout. And you need to be very hyper aware of what burnout looks like in any situation that you're in, and learn to pull back from that situation if you can, or find a new situation to go to if you are starting to burn out, because it'll prevent you from giving anything else any effort. And so it's very important that you remember that if you start burning out, you need to give yourself a break, give yourself a little grace, find an escape, and get away from it for a little while. Last point, sometimes quitting is the most productive move. This is a lesson that I learned even slightly more recently, and it makes a very, very big difference. It makes a very big difference. So I strongly recommend that you look into it where it's like, would things be better if you just weren't in that situation? You weren't at that job, you weren't in that relationship, you weren't chasing that one thing that just doesn't quite make sense, that you're chasing it. Maybe now is just not the right time. So it's okay to quit and walk away. Again, failing is a part of learning. It's part of growing. So all that is like, there was a point where I had to quit training for strongman because I got hurt, which we'll touch on later. There's a point where I had to quit college because I couldn't afford it, and I did not want to go in an immense amount of debt for something that I didn't know if it was gonna pay off. I saw all these other people applying for the same program. I knew these other people who were a year or two ahead of me, and I even knew some people who had a 4 to 6 year degree in kinesiology or exercise science, and they weren't getting anywhere with it. They were all getting these remedial personal training jobs in these box gyms. And it's kind of like, so you're telling me I would go into 6 figures of debt to go get paid 14 to 16 an hour to go personal train? I was like, that doesn't make any sense. So I tried to teach myself how to do it. I took classes and webinars from different individuals and agencies and all this other stuff, which eventually I learned that wasn't a good idea either. And yeah, I found a different outlet. than going to school. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying I learned more by doing it than I did sitting in a class. And work, eventually, I quit that too. So just to chase what I wanted to do. And there were times where I quit YouTube. I had other things that were, as of at that moment, were way more important than trying to think of content and what idea did I want to make next, and when was I going to make time to edit it. And it didn't make any sense to keep doing it, so I quit that too, and then I eventually came back to it. And so I just, even though a lot of this was my decision at those times, I was failing and failing and failing again and again and again. And again, it's how I became an amazing failure. So overall, it's such a big, important lesson to understand, one, your worth, two, the value of your time, and the value of those around you. And you need to balance those. It's the hardest thing to balance. Everyone, every day, is still learning how to balance it. Some people become obsessed with work. Some people become obsessed with their passion. Some people become obsessed with people. And something always suffers. And before I eventually quit the 9 to 5, I made a huge mistake trying to replace my income.